This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts, Kevin Tucker and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic! What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is December 9th, 2024. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host, Kevin Tucker. Kevin, I thought we were just going to be incredibly depressed on this pod, which there will still be a healthy serving of that. But man, is it hard to be too bummed after the win that we just had here Sunday night at home over the Phoenix Suns. We're going to talk about all of that, man, but just what a gutsy win. I don't know if it's too prisoner of the moment to say that feels like the signature win of the year right now.
Honestly, Jonathan, this has just been such a roller coaster of emotions over the last, less than 36 hours at this point. I mean, obviously, we find the news about Franz, and that's crushing. And then if you're like me, you just thought this team's never going to win until at least we get Paolo back. And then tonight, the Magic find a way to win, and we're going to talk about that game. But then even as we're sitting here, Jonathan, you and I getting ready to record this, you get hit with another sucker punch. A baseball sucker punch, and so now you're down to the dumps again. Like, it's just a roller coaster of a sports weekend.
Yeah, lots of sucker punches and coming in various directions tonight. But yeah, Juan Soto, a New York Met, like just going across town, just does not sit right with me. Really don't want to talk about that again. I know we're going to have plenty of time for the pressing stuff that we're going to talk about tonight. But before we do that, I didn't type up our typical, weekly state of the Magic, but just to let everyone know, Magic fans that are listening to this, as of the time of this recording Sunday night, the Magic are third in the Eastern Conference. They're 17-9. They are 4.5 games back of Cleveland, who's the 1 seed. The Magic are still third in the East, 3 games back of Boston. You're a game and a half up on the Knicks, 3 games up on the Heat, 3.5 games up on the Milwaukee Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks. You're 6 games up on the Brooklyn Nets, 6.5 games up on the Pacers and the Bulls and the Pistons for that matter. So the Magic are still like squarely in not only like the postseason conversation, but like playoffs, right? Like you're, 3.5 games up on the 7 seed Atlanta Hawks. So you're still doing pretty good. We're going to talk about the loss of Franz Wagner. I kind of want to save that for the later part of this. We also have an incredible interview with our guy Jeff Turner, talking about really like the first quarter of the season. Starting last year, we started to check in, with JT like every quarter mark of the season. So he joined us. Really great conversation. We've got some good nuggets from that. But before we transition to that, after we talk about the last couple of games, we'll definitely talk, some Franz specific stuff. But the good news is, Kevin, that with everything going on, you get another win tonight and you still have a cushion. You're still right there in the middle of this battle in the middle of the Eastern Conference for standings here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, like you said, we'll talk about the Franz stuff later, but we weren't sure this team could stay afloat without Paolo, and they did that and more. And so far in the post Paolo and Franz era, they're 1-0. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, definitely a wild weekend for Magic fans.
I have a funny feeling that this will probably be a little bit different of a situation. No Paolo, no Franz. I don't know that we're going to get the individual performances that we did tonight every night. And you're going to need some of those, especially as we talk about some of the upcoming games here. You're headed to Milwaukee. That's going to be a tough one in the NBA Cup, quarterfinal there. We'll talk about all of that, of course. But before we talk about the awesome win that was Sunday night, we're going to go back to Friday when, unfortunately, the Magic fell 94-102 in Philadelphia. And there was just a lot of settling for threes in this game. It did feel like, you've been on the road for 9 days. You're playing this team for the second time in 3 days. It's your 5th game of the road trip. Everybody's sort of ready to get home. And also, up to that point, and still, the Magic have played more games than almost any other team in the league, and they've played more away games than almost any other team in the league. So I don't want to make a ton of excuses, But when you just look at the level of production a guy like Franz Wagner, has been putting up, and he gets hurt in the second half of this game, and he just didn't really seem to have it, closing this game out, and the injury would make a lot of sense, almost exactly like what we saw, in Chicago against the Bulls, the game that Paolo Banchero was injured. But I wasn't super upset about this loss. I went into the game, what was that, Wednesday, saying this is the game that you have to have. If you don't win this one, it's going to be really tough to get that other one, Friday, when you're basically the end of that road trip against Philadelphia. So they were able to do that, and you still end the road trip 3-2, right? Like, it's really hard for me to be upset about a result at the end of a road trip when you have already sealed a winning road trip. And for a team who struggled so mightily last year on the road, again, you win more than you lose on the road in a given road trip. Like, it's a successful road trip.
Yeah, 100% agree. And like you said, Wednesday was the night that they were without Paul George. And so you go into that, well, obviously, and Embiid, but he was out for both games. But you go into that game, you got to win that one, and you do. So yeah, it opens up a little bit more flexibility on Friday. The part that's hard is this game was still there for the winning. That's the part that I think is tough for a lot of Magic fans. It was for myself. Magic did a good job of fighting. They did a good job, obviously, defensively. They held the Sixers to 27% from three. They held Jared McCain. They held Tyrese Maxey. They held Paul George. Nobody really got cooking from deep. And so all those things combined, the Magic had a chance in this game. Albeit, down the stretch, they were playing from behind, right? It's not like the Magic had a lead and lost it or anything like that, but they had opportunities. But once again, offensively, just couldn't get it done. And like you said, the Franz injury happens, we believe it was the third quarter, right? And so that would explain, some of the stuff we saw with Franz there in the fourth. He just wasn't quite right. Jalen missed a couple triples there down the stretch that could have given the Magic an even better chance. And so everything combined, when you look at the schedule, like you said, to go 3-2 on a road trip, you'll take it. Like I said, I think some Magic fans might have just been wanting this one because it was there. It was right there. As difficult of a game as it was, as much of an underdog as you felt in that game, it was still there. Just couldn't get it done. But at least I'll give them credit for continuing to fight on the road.
Well, Paul George, he hits a three early in the fourth quarter to give Philly a 78-61 lead. And at that point, like, it literally felt like it was over. But then you have the Mo Wagner three, immediately followed by the Cole Anthony three, and then a Mo Wagner dunk, a Jalen Suggs layup, which over the course of 2 minutes, it was a 17-point lead. All of a sudden, it's a 7-point game. And Jalen, in that fourth quarter, 5 of 10 from the floor, 3 of 7 from behind the arc, and 2 of those were just, one was the really bad one with 30 seconds left. There was 10 seconds left on the shot clock. He thought the shot clock was a lot lower than it was, because he just catches the ball from the right corner and immediately turns and just throws one up. And I think it might have been an air ball. It was really bad. But he had 15 points in that fourth quarter. You're not even sniffing being competitive at the end of this game without Jalen Suggs in the way that he played in the fourth. Now, did he struggle the first 3 quarters? Yes. But I just thought it was really admirable the way, we know how resilient this team is. We know the type of fight that they have. Their ability to get back in this game, is pretty admirable. Like, the Magic were down 4 with that first Jalen three that we're talking about. It was 94-98. If he makes that, all of a sudden it's a 1-point game with 35 seconds left. He doesn't, has to throw up another one with 25 seconds left. I didn't hate it because he was kind of feeling it. That second one, at least. The first one was not good. You really can't take that shot. But by that time, the game was sort of out of reach. Philadelphia had been making their free throws. But yeah, the big takeaway from this game is obviously the Franz Wagner injury, which is not great. We're going to talk about sort of more big picture stuff, what that looks like, especially now that we've gotten a game to see what it looks like without Franz. But yeah, I just thought it was a really admirable effort for those guys, given all the circumstances. And, healthy Franz Wagner, we probably end up finding a way to come back and win that game.
Oh yeah, 100. I feel that way, at least 100%. Yeah, all we needed was one more guy to be able to make some plays down the stretch, and just couldn't get it done. But unfortunately,
Franz
not only
2 of 2 in that fourth quarter,
right.
He was absolutely ailing.
Not only obviously tough loss for the Magic, but that's a rare watch party loss too for the 6-man show, which is always tough. But yeah, like you said, credit their fight. They're never going to give up. They love playing in tough environments, and so but yeah, just came a little bit short on Friday.
And a lot of the same problems that we've been talking about for the last several weeks have been there. Like Franz still had 30 points in this game, 30 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, a steal, a block. Jalen, 22 points, had a big night, especially that fourth quarter. Mo Wagner was pretty good, but just like offensively, you really struggled to get anything from anyone else. 28% from 3, 19 turnovers. Like these are all problems that, regardless, Franz, no Franz, these are issues that we've had, all season long. But yeah, some people were really upset at this loss, and just the way that this year has gone so far, and especially everything that we know now, it's really hard for me to look back and be really upset about that loss.
Yeah, same.
Now let's talk about the game tonight, Sunday night, as we're recording this. We did not go into this game very optimistic. We got the news Saturday. We had, myself, you were in town in Orlando on Saturday. Sam made the drive up. Obviously, Matt was there, and something that we're working on that hopefully we'll be able to, roll out and show you guys over the next week or so. Well, we were all together when the news broke, and we were just all in utter shock and disbelief about Franz. So going into this game, no Franz. Then, J.I. is questionable with the sore right hamstring, from the cramping a couple of games ago. And then he's ruled out. So now you're just going into this game like, what is the starting lineup going to look like? Who's going to play? Even though Phoenix didn't have Yusuf Nurkic, they don't have Kevin Durant, still looking at Devin Booker, on the other side, and, Bradley Beal, who, in my opinion, is really a shell of what he once was, but had a pretty solid night tonight, actually, for Phoenix. But didn't feel great going into this. Like we were saying, like it was a 50-50 shot, really, like going into the game. And then you find out that there's not going to be any JI, and it felt more like, I don't know, 40-60, 30-70. I was not optimistic going into this one, Kevin. I don't know about you.
No, yeah, I was very unoptimistic, very pessimistic about this one. And again, it's not because I thought, this team's just going to give up. It's never that, right? It's a Jamal Mosley coach team. It's never something you think you're going to see. Or, the defense, they're going to fall apart. No, it wasn't that. It was, where are the points going to come from? That's the question, right? When you come into this game and this whole stretch, and it's still going to be a question, right? But at least speaking about tonight, I was just thinking, this team has had zero time to prepare for this, right? It's not like the injury happened weeks ago and you can game plan and figure out new rotations and stuff. You just got to figure it out. It was 24 hours before this game that this news drop. And so that was my biggest question, is where will the offense come from? How will we score 70 points, really? I mean, because there are games this year where we struggled to score 90 with Franz, and so that was the question mark for me. And obviously I was a non-believer, and I'm a believer now. I don't know how well we're going to do in the stretch, but tonight they proved me wrong big time, because I had very little hopes for this game, and shame on me, especially because it was a home game. We should pick them till they lose, apparently, and they won again tonight somehow, some way.
I guess so. I mean, this one did feel like at various points of the game that it was really in danger of getting out of hand. Like Royce O'Neal and Tyus Jones, like those guys combining, 9 for 14 from behind the arc. Those guys, like when those guys started to get hot, it really felt like, okay, we're in trouble here. But like, it's not exactly very similar to the Lakers game, but kind of, where like every time Phoenix made a little bit of a run, the Magic would make a run themselves to get it back into 4 or 5 points, like somewhere in that neighborhood. And then in the fourth quarter, Jalen Suggs just went off. Like he went off Friday night in the fourth quarter against Philadelphia. And especially when he hits a couple of shots in front of that home Kia crowd and is able to feed off of that energy, and he just really gets going. But he finished with 26 points, 14 of those in the fourth quarter. He was 4 of 7 from the floor, 2 of 5 from behind the arc, 2 rebounds, an assist. Obviously, the defense, it always helps, get guys going the other way. And then Goga Batadze in this one, 21 points, 16 rebounds for Goga, including the tip-in that put the Magic up 5 with less than a minute to go. which really felt like it put the game away. And then, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, he misses some free throws down the stretch, and you got a little bit nervous, but the Magic were able to get the stops that they needed at the end. But the beginning of this game, everybody just looked super locked in. Like, whether or not shots were falling, you could just tell that everyone knew from buzzer to buzzer they were going to have to bring it and be as focused as possible if they were going to have a chance to win it. And at the beginning of the game, I'm like, okay, this is fine now. Obviously, these guys found out about the injury yesterday, about Franz. Jalen Suggs mentioned with Dante Marchitelli on FanDuel Sports Florida after the game, mentioned that Jonathan Isaac prompted a players-only meeting before the game and just sort of brought everybody together and got them ready for this one. But you could see that it was very evident early in the game that they had like this emotional boost. But the thing about those is like at some point they run out.
Right.
And it could have happened in this game. It might carry over into the next game. At some point, though, that just wears off. And all you really have is your principles, and your ability to stick to those principles is what is going to be able to hopefully carry this team until it seems very likely that Paolo is going to be back before Franz. Like, we're really hoping for that right now. But just the way like every guy in this game to a man battled. Cole Anthony, it didn't end up being the most like hyper efficient 14 points, but 14 points, 6 of 14 from the floor, 2 of 6 from behind, especially in the first half.
Yeah.
Cole was awesome, helped keep you in this game. I felt like this was the best Cole Anthony game of the year. I felt like he was the most impactful in this game as he's been in any game this year. And you don't win this game without a lot of guys. Like, almost to everybody, I feel like you probably don't win this game without, like, even Jett Howard. Like, Jett Howard had some moments in this game. Yeah. The
Caleb
box scores in Caleb Houston.
Yeah.
Like, the box score for some of these guys isn't super impressive, but like, we are not talking about Jamal Mosley enough. Just look at what he's done over the course of the last 5 weeks, and especially tonight. This man should like be no lower than like top 3 in your coach of the year conversations. He's just doing such a fantastic job. I really I can't recall rooting for a team with a head coach who is as good of a motivator of men as Jamal Mosley is. Like, maybe Tom Coughlin, like when the Giants were winning Super Bowls, but like, I am just always so impressed. Even going back to Jamal's first year, the team was terrible. We were getting blown out on a very regular basis, but you always knew that the Magic were going to fight from buzzer to buzzer. Right. And at some point they were going to go on like a 18-5 run in the third quarter to kind of seem like the game was going to get dangerous. And then of course it would get out of hand. But like, from day one, the way that Jamal has gotten these guys to compete is, you cannot say enough about it.
Right. And it's twofold, right? Like, the one side of it is the, I guess, X's and O's of it, right? Like, this team is built on defense. This team is built on effort and all those things. And that's part of it. And that's important. And that's a very important part of this team's identity. But the other half of it is this team is built, like a family, right? Like, the fact that these guys, they don't just want to play for Jamal Mosley for his scheme. They want to play for him because they genuinely love the guy, right? That is not something that can be manufactured. That is not something that you can teach. That is just something that he has, and that is something that he has brought to this team, to this organization, right? And so, all kudos to him, right? The fact that, don't look now, the Cavs lost again tonight. So all this Kenny Atkinson, coach of the month, coach of the year stuff, with every loss, that gets a little bit less impactful, right? That big start. And so
7-3 in your last 10.
Couldn't
not
be us.
Jamal Mosley.
Nope, not Jamal Mosley. But obviously such a long way to go. But what he has done without Paolo for 20 games now, and now without Franz for 1, the fact that the Magic are undefeated without Paolo and Franz in itself, just give him coach of the year right now. Just give him the award. But but seriously, yeah, love Jamal Mosley. And one of these days I'm going to write him this letter that just says, thank you. Genuinely thank you for changing the culture of this team that we love, right? Like,
literally,
we could do a whole episode on Jamal Mosley, like the culture change from day one with him, and the fact that there's pride when you put on that jersey now is I could never thank him with words enough. Like there's not enough words that I could say that could adequately express the gratitude that I have. So he's the best. Love him to death. Hope he's here forever. Big credit to Jamal Mosley.
Totally agree. Quick Cleveland sidebar. Some people that were like, "Hey, is Cleveland for real?" I feel a little bit vindicated. Started 15-0. They're 6-4, and they're like since then, or not? Is that? Yeah, 6-4 since then. So
yikes!
I feel barely 15-0 now. They're 21-4. So with obviously a loss to Boston their first of the year, but then 2 losses to Atlanta, and tonight a loss to Miami. It was their second night of a back-to-back at Charlotte, at Miami. But we don't lose to Miami.
I was about to say we haven't lost to Miami or Boston or Atlanta yet this season.
We haven't played any of those teams, but other than Miami, obviously.
The Sixth Man Show is brought to you by Jam Hot Chicken. And you're probably thinking, wait a second, it's a Monday episode. Where's our Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week? Well, stay tuned. We have a very special edition of the Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week later in the episode. But for now, let me tell you about Jam Hot Chicken. They're bringing jams, culture, and hot chicken to the heart of Winter Park. Jonathan, myself, got to grace that place again this weekend. Always a good time. Jam Hot Chicken is a Nashville and LA-inspired hot chicken shack, locally owned and operated in Winter Park, Florida, at 400 West New England Avenue, Suite 13 there in Hannibal Square. You can follow them on social media at Jam Hot Chicken, especially Instagram, man. They're always making me hungry with their posts. It's always some good stuff. You can also check out jamhotchickenfl.com to access their menu, do online ordering, and check out all things Jam Hot. We love Jam Hot Chicken because they love Orlando Magic fans. Big shout out to Jam Hot Chicken. And when you go check them out, let them know the Sixth Man Show sent you.
This episode is also brought to you by Mama Richmond, Kane Eckler, Bill Fulton, Eduardo Sanchez, and 50 on your head. These are some of our elite and Hall of Fame tier patrons. These are folks that help financially support the Sixth Man Show. None of this would be possible without the support of our patrons. So if you want to financially support the Sixth Man Show, head on over to patreon.com/the Sixth Man Show. We have a few benefits and different tiers that you can choose from. And again, we couldn't do any of this without the help of our patrons. So we love them so much and we thank them for their continued support. And let's get back to the episode. But no, I just want to give Jalen like a quick shout out. Like, was awesome. Like, obviously the Magic don't win this game without him. 26 points. It's not great first 3 quarters, especially like the first half was pretty rough, but like just credit to him for like staying grounded. He talked about it in his interview with Dante, but like, listened to some music at halftime, sort of recentered himself and just like remember that, my identity does not come from my basketball performance, but also gave credit to his teammates, for continuing to encourage him and lift him up. And yeah, just Jalen Suggs, man, like, he's not the greatest basketball player of all time. He's a heck of a basketball player regardless, but like I would be lying if I said this dude is not like climbing up the rankings of like pound for pound my favorite basketball player of all time.
Yeah.
When he has it going on both sides of the floor, he is like I don't care if you like basketball. He's just so much fun to watch the way that he competes on both ends. When he's hitting threes, he's getting the crowd into it. And like when he has it going, he's just really good at basketball. He's just a fantastic human being. So
yeah, and obviously, I mean, defensively, he's just so much fun to watch, right? Just electrifying. And oftentimes, his defense is what feeds his offense, and we saw it tonight too, right? Like guys just flying around the ball tonight. I think Phoenix ended up with 21, 22 turnovers, something like that. 19, same thing, whatever. I thought they said 21 on the broadcast, but NBA.com says 19. Regardless, just flying around, causing turnovers, wreaking havoc, and that's one of the big ways that Magic, led to scoring. Big question mark, where is scoring going to come from? Magic were able to make it happen on the defensive end. They got 23 points off turnovers tonight. Sheesh, that's crazy. So love Jalen, and he's the catalyst for all of that. Literally all of it. We got a lot of great defenders, but he's the one that leads the charge and couldn't do it without him.
We want to talk about Goga Bitadze closing this game at the 5 as the sole big man on the floor with almost 31 minutes in this game.
And how impactful he was in those minutes and had basically the game-sealing bucket off of an offensive rebound. That you want to talk about that stuff? Yeah.
What's crazy, Goga finished a -1 on the box plus minus, which is like you can't always just go and look at that. Like I felt like it's not that Wendell is bad when he's out there. He's just almost invisible when he's out there. He finishes plus 13. Like Cole Anthony was a team high plus 17. Anthony Black was a plus 15. When I watch these guys play right now, I genuinely don't understand the argument for Wendell being the starting center moving forward. Mm-hmm. Like when Paolo comes back, and maybe it's not until Franz comes back, right? Like maybe they play Paolo at the 3, and then they play this, Wendell Goga double big lineup. I really don't know. Would definitely help with your size. Hope it helps with some of the rebounding issues that we've had lately. But I don't know how you send Goga back to being the third string center. You can't. I don't know what you do, but I think Goga has to start full time moving forward.
I don't know how he doesn't. I mean, I don't have it in front of me, but his record as a starter is outrageous. If you think about last year when he steps in for Wendell, at least in the first half of the year. I know there were several games later in the year that he started and then later came off the bench for some, and those weren't as successful. But in the games that he's started over the last 2 years, his record's got to be ridiculous, right? I mean, it's crazy. And so at one level, you can say, oh, he doesn't do X, Y, and Z well, but at the end of the day, you got to look at team success. And there's a whole dang lot of it when he starts, right? And It's not just wins and losses, even just the eye test. Like this team is a different team when he's on the floor on both ends, honestly, right? Like we all know he's a shot blocker and rebounder, and those things are very important, but even offensively, right? Like he has such good IQ. He's great passing when he gets the opportunity. Offensive rebounds, huge. Like we said, had the essentially game sealing bucket tonight off of a offensive rebound off that Jet Howard miss. And so, lots of credit to him. And again, I don't know how. How do you put him as the third string after he's done this again? I don't see it happening.
Let's talk about Franz. Shams broke the news Saturday that Franz Wagner is out indefinitely with the right oblique tear, the same injury that Paolo Banchero suffered. Shams is reporting that Franz is going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks, where the timeline with Paolo was originally 4 to 6 weeks. And we're like right in the middle of that 4 to 6 week window since the Paolo injury. It's been like almost exactly 5 weeks. Just a massive gut punch, right? Like the way that the team has been playing, number one, but especially the way that Franz has been playing, like 6 in the NBA.com MVP ladder. When was the last time? Like literally, Dwight Howard in like 2010 was probably the last time we had a Magic player ranked that high in the NBA.com MVP ladder. It just doesn't happen. It speaks to the way the team has been playing and especially the way that Franz has been playing. So you're just gutted for him. Not even necessarily just for us, but it's incredibly disappointing for him just how well he's been playing and just literally carrying this team on a night in and night out basis. And I think someone said the last time before Paolo suffered the oblique tear, the last time an NBA player suffered an oblique tear, it was Cole Anthony, either in 2021 or 2022. Forget what season that was, but that just shows you it's an incredibly rare injury for an NBA player. And in the span of, I've been saying 2 months, it's not even 2 months, it's 5 weeks. Your two best players, your two franchise cornerstones, both go down with right oblique tears. It's just this crazy, bizarre, additional screw you chapter to the injuries that we've been dealing with over the course of the last 5 years as a franchise. It's just, it's gutting because now the question went from, hey, can we tread water until Paolo gets back and you can still be third in the Eastern Conference? And now who knows, maybe you can finish the way that this team's been playing and maybe Cleveland's coming back down to earth. Can you be the 1 seed? I don't know. It kind of felt like the sky was the limit for this team in certain respects, the way that they were playing, and getting a guy like Paolo, your mind just kind of went crazy with the hopes and the dreams of that. But now it goes to Paolo better come back soon, or are we going to be in the play-in? right?
Yeah.
Like you're not that you're 4.5, 5 games away from the play-in right now.
And we just talked about on the last episode, and we talk about it with Jeff Turner in our conversation with him later. In this one, you're about to hit a much different level of schedule over the rest of December, right? Like a lot of home games, which is great, but a lot of big names coming to town. And so this team is going to have a major challenge. The two good things are this. Number one, you have built a cushion. Okay. So that is huge. That cannot be understated. Number two, like you said, Paolo is coming back, hopefully sooner rather than later. And then number three, eventually, at some point this season, you're going to have both guys. Paolo and Franz will be back. They'll be playing together. This team will be healthy, and off we go. And so, again, it feels eerily similar to when we had this conversation on Halloween. This team just has to tread water, just try to scrap any kind of wins you can get to try and stay around 500. If they can stay above 500, that'd be amazing. But yeah, and then, hey, once Paolo and Franz get back, let's go, right? Let's hit the ground running. Let's go on a great run there. Schedule, obviously, it has its ups and downs as it always does, but there are definitely some soft stretches still ahead in the schedule, especially because, like you said, the Magic have played the most games in the league. They've played the most road games in the league. So eventually we have home games. Eventually we have rest between games. And so it's going to be important to have our two best guys for that. I'm not worried. That's the thing I ultimately want to come across, right? Like it's not time for the panic button. It's still too early in the season. We've built this cushion. I think the Magic will be fine. Will they lose some seeding spots from this stretch? I think it's very possible. In fact, I'd say it's probable. At the end of the day, come April, that the Magic have lost 1 or 2 spots in the standings because of this stretch that we're about to go through. But hey, I thought we were going to lose tonight, and we didn't. So who the heck knows? I don't. But we'll see what this team is made of.
When Paolo went down, we immediately turned to Franz.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, hey, buddy, you're the max guy. It's time for you to be a max guy. And he was able to elevate to that. When Jalen Suggs signed his extension, the 5-year, $150 million, like $30 million a year, whatever the numbers exactly ended up being, some people went, wow, that's a lot of money for Jalen Suggs. Are we turning to Jalen Suggs and saying, hey, buddy, it's time to be a $30 million a year guy?
I mean, who else can you turn to?
But what I'm saying is, like, where's your level of confidence with that? Because with Franz, right, I think we were like, he can be a max guy, but we didn't think, I didn't at least think he was going to get to the level that he got to, which was like one of the, he's been playing like one of the best 10 guys in the league this year.
Right.
How confident are you that Jalen can get to that level consistently?
Definitely less confident than Franz. I think if you ask me, again, for me, it comes down to the schedule. If this happened at the same time Franz has happened, and we had that stretch of very winnable games, would I say, can Jalen lead us to a strong record in that? Yeah, I think so. Not to the same statistical or impact level that Franz has had. But this stretch here is just so tough. It's just so tough. It's hard to see without a Franz and a Paolo. Again, just where the offense comes from. But ultimately, Jalen's still a dog, especially defensively. And if we have to win games 68-67, then let's freaking do it, Yeah, you just got to give him credit. At least one game down, he took care of one game, took over that game. Again, it wasn't perfect for all 48 minutes, but he hit shots when he needed to. He got stops when he needed to. And so I definitely think that can happen from time to time during the stretch. Not every night, but I think from time to time, he'll single-handedly win us games, and it'll be fun.
I'm right there with you. I'm less confident than we were with Franz. I don't think I have like the super silver lining thing in me to be like, oh, this could end up being a blessing in disguise, right?
Right.
But when we started to say that, it was when Franz like really stepped up and we said, okay, now that we're being able to remove ourselves a little bit from the injury, we can say, hey, this was a blessing in disguise. Look what's happened with Franz. We might be 3 weeks away from Jalen Suggs. Like, Jalen Suggs isn't going to be putting up Franz numbers. But if Jalen is consistently a relatively efficient 20 a game, like if he's shooting 45% from the floor and, upper 30s from behind the arc and giving us 20 points a game and finds another level of confidence within his own game, it probably won't translate to the same type of wins as Franz's elevation did. But we could look back and be like, hey, this actually was also a blessing in disguise. If there is a silver lining, just given the way that the schedule is breaking down right now and the rest that you're going to have, I do think this is probably happening at like the best possible time, because it allows, one, the guys that are playing on a night in and night out basis. Jalen Suggs is always hurt.
Yeah.
Always. Every single game. He may not be on the injury report, but I guarantee you something is bothering him.
Right.
Those guys are going to get some time off. We've Tuesday at Milwaukee. And then is it going to be Thursday of this week? Or we don't know.
Saturday. Saturday's the semifinal.
Well, what if we lose?
Well, no, I'm saying
what
if
does
we
that
win,
break?
if we win, Saturday is the semifinal, which is still possible. And if we lose, we'll play Sunday at either 5 or 6 p.m. If we lose.
The team is going to have anywhere from 3 to 4 days off after this Milwaukee game. And look, we've been saying this since Paolo went out, but I'm hoping, I'm lighting all the candles. I've got my fingers crossed. We're hoping and praying that December 19th versus Oklahoma City, that Paolo is able to come back and is good to go for that game. If that's the case, right? Worst case scenario, you lose 2 games and then Paolo's back.
Right.
And you're still sitting at 17 and 11. You might drop down to 4 in the East with that.
Right.
That is absolute best case scenario. If that happens, I feel a lot better.
Right.
I mean, he's got to be back by the 26th, right? Like home versus Miami. Why are you shaking your head?
You said he's got to be back. I don't think he is. I don't think we see him until
January.
January.
Don't think we see him until January.
I don't think we see him until. I will be so happy if I'm wrong. I don't think we see him until January. That's what I think.
I was talking. I think we went to Jam Hot Chicken yesterday after our little soiree.
Shout out.
I think you were gone when I made this point, but I was talking with the guys, and I said, obviously, if he's actually healthy and he's ready to go, right? What the point that we're kind of at with Paolo is like he's starting to do some on-court work, but what the team would like to do in an ideal situation is allow him to gain all the conditioning, all that kind of stuff back. I would not hate this as like Paolo's first move and like really flexing his franchise player kind of weight and gravitas is to say, no, I'm playing. Like Franz is out. I feel like I'm good to go. Medical staff is, maybe my conditioning isn't perfect, but I'm playing. That is going to tell me, like, if something like that were to occur, I doubt we would hear that it happens exactly like that. But man, I would love to hear a story someday of like, yeah, all that stuff was happening. Paolo was like, nah, forget that. I'm playing.
Right.
The way that they handle this over the course of the next couple of weeks, to me, could hint at the way that this team, or the way that the front office views this team and views this season. If they see the way that we've been playing the last couple of weeks and they've been thinking, wow, we just add Paolo back to this and we're genuinely contenders in the Eastern Conference, you're somebody's twisted ankle away. You never know what the matchups when it comes to the playoffs of like making an Eastern Conference Finals run or like making a run of the finals. If they believe that this team is actually capable of that, which I myself am not sold on, but if that was their line of thinking, I could see them saying, like, just get him back. If he's not at any type of risk of re-injuring it,
right,
bring him back. Even if he's not 100% with the conditioning, get him back in there.
That's what I was going to say. I have to hear from the medical staff that he's good to go, right?
Yeah.
Like that's, outside of that, whatever, I don't care. But I don't think anybody, front office especially, is going to risk, re-injury if they don't have the guarantee of that. He's not going in. But anyway, yeah, I would be surprised if it's before January 1st, but I hope I'm wrong. Goodness gracious, I hope I'm wrong.
Give me 25 minutes of Paolo. I'm not asking for a lot,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else about this depressing Franz stuff before we get to our interview with Jeff Turner?
No, it'll be interesting. He also, like Paolo, has not missed significant time in his career, and so we'll see what that does for him. Hopefully it gives him some new perspectives and new opportunities to evaluate games differently. But ultimately, if there is, I know we said no silver lining. If there is silver lining, he's going to at least have some well-rested legs in March, April, which he hasn't had in years. We always talk about Franz. He plays too much basketball between Germany and the Orlando Magic, has not had a rest in years, basically. It's a forced rest now, right? Obviously, you'd like for him to still be able to get some work done on the court. But yeah, he's going to get some rest. And so hopefully that pays dividends in the spring. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see.
I enjoy the positive perspective, and I enjoy the fact that we won tonight's game, because had we not, the tone of this whole episode would have been much, much different.
For sure.
All right, let's bring in our guy, Jeff Turner.
I just got to add, this is Captain Obvious, okay? But we have to say, we recorded this with Jeff Thursday night, okay? So we're going to talk about Franz, and it's going to be bittersweet, because at the time, we were on top of the world. We had just beaten Philly the first time. So this was Thursday night, before the Friday Philly game, before the Franz news, all that kind of stuff. Okay, I just had to add that, Jonathan. Now we can hear from Jeff Turner.
All right, Magic fans, we are joined by a very special guest and friend of the program. We've made a habit of doing these the last couple of seasons. Our quarter check-in with none other than Orlando Magic legend Jeff Turner. JT, welcome back. How are you doing, sir?
I am doing well. I'm recording this from my hotel room in lovely Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's a little chilly up here.
That's awesome. And I think I kind of want to go through this. Last time we had you on the show, maybe it was over the off season, we talked about the hotel room setups. And this is our first time getting to have you on the show from a hotel room. From the scale of terrible to Charlotte, where is the Philadelphia hotel room on the NBA scale?
Philadelphia, this is one of the nicest hotels we stay in. So it's hard to nitpick and complain. So I've got a nice, probably 36-inch round little table here. Plenty of outlets. I've got good lighting. So it's pretty good. Charlotte has the big L-shaped desk, so you feel like you're an executive somewhere, and you've got plenty of room. You could have a major office with that desk. So, that's why I always have that one at the top. But this is a pretty good workspace. We're staying at it's actually this hotel is kind of part of the Comcast center building, and so great view. You can see all over Philadelphia. So from a workspace standpoint, on a scale of 0 being the previous Oklahoma City hotel that we stayed at, where I had to work off a coffee table, and Charlotte being a 5, I would give this one a 4.
Respectable. You're in a different setting there. And speaking of different settings, this past Tuesday, when you all were in Madison Square Garden, weeks back, you figured you weren't going to be broadcasting that game. It gets flexed off of TNT. Then you think maybe you are broadcasting that game. It gets flexed back onto TNT. So you're not broadcasting the game. What is that experience like for you and the team, like being in the building but not doing a normal broadcast?
It was the strangest feeling. It's interesting. This is my 12th year of doing television. I think we've only had, other than the Cleveland in the playoffs, where I actually did radio when that one got bumped. So I was actually working on that one. I've only had one other game that was national TV that would do it. It was a home game. So I sat at my courtside spot like I usually do, at the Kia Center. So that one didn't seem as odd. On the road in Madison Square Garden was really different. Dante and I sat up in the media loge, which was, I think, the 4th level or 3rd level or something like that, way away from the court. The weirdest thing for me was sitting there with nothing to do. So I was actually like a fan, right? Like, normally, I'm a fan. I'm part of the organization. I love this team, but when I'm working, and I'm preoccupied with a lot of things. When you're just sitting there watching, and it wasn't a particularly good game for the Magic, it just starts bringing out some different emotions. Like what is happening? And it doesn't help that I'm sitting next to Dante Marcatelli, who is, as you guys know, kind of just wears his emotions on his sleeves and everything. So the two of us, it was really an outer body experience. And I got to say, I did enjoy it. I like working the games, being a part of the broadcast. I'm not good at just sitting in the stands being a fan.
Well, I was going to say, there's not really many worse games you could have chosen to have nothing to do.
Right?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Jeff, is were you able to actually, I know there weren't a lot of moments to cheer, but when you're media, there's certain rules and protocols you have to follow. Were you guys able to, at least the first 4 minutes when the game was good, were you able to cheer, or was that against the rules?
No, we were good, I thought. We were like, okay, here we go. And, we were kind of down in front of the working media, they were sitting at the tables and everything. So we weren't disturbing them. We were talking between the two of us and everything. But, just getting to the, as you guys know, when you get to an NBA game, when you're doing it, you get there a couple hours early, you go to the coaches' interviews and things like that. And, that just wasn't, that wasn't something we were a part of. We did get to go see sit in on the coaches' interviews. I should take that back. But, then all the prep that goes into it, meeting, going over things for, the different elements of the broadcast. There's just a lot of time to kill, and it was just odd. So just really odd. Wasn't for me. I'm a working guy. I just want to work.
Well, I hear that. Sticking to our normal, way of checking in here with you after every quarter of the season, we're going to pretend like the last, few games haven't really happened yet. We're just going to talk about maybe the first 21 games. Well, with that first Brooklyn game, the Magic ended up, their 21st game, they were 14-7. Obviously, Paolo Banchero goes down after the first handful of games. A little bit of a shaky start after Paolo's injury, but since then the team has really righted the ship. Franz Wagner's been incredible. What to you, what are some of the biggest storylines or highlights of the first quarter of the season for this Magic team, Jeff?
Yeah, I think obviously you look at the way the team started and the way Paolo was playing. Just on a really an all NBA track, right? And we're assuming he's going to come back to that as well. I think, when he got injured in Chicago, we're on a pretty tough road trip. If you remember, the next, 3 games are Cleveland, Dallas, Oklahoma City, which, as you look at the standings now, 3 of the top teams in the league. And so not having him there, having prepared all preseason with him in the lineup, I think was a little bit of an adjustment period for our guys. And so, I think the great thing about this team is they really kind of stood on their principles from a defensive standpoint and really kind of just locked in on that. And, this has been, even when they've struggled offensively, they've been so good on the defensive end that it's kept them in games. And I think that was a big part of why, this team was able to kind of quickly turn it around and, kind of win, on your timeline. I guess we're talking about 10 of 11, 11 of 12. And so, that's pretty impressive. Now, a lot of the good things have to come together. And I think the evolution of Franz Wagner, you lose a player of Paolo's caliber, you start thinking, wow, high usage guy is, we know we've got Franz who's capable, but his ability to become the scoring, not so surprising to me, I don't think. But just the way he has been able to really attack defenses that are really kind of geared towards him, just reading things. His assist numbers way up. He's not really turning the ball over a lot from such a high usage guy. I think those things, I guess that would be the part that would surprise me about how quickly he picked up on all of that. And to Franz, even himself, he has said, it's just all different for him, right? Most guys, Paolo's been that guy all his life, right? The number one guy. Franz is, kind of working into this. He hadn't been that guy. He's been a really good player on good teams, whether it's the German team or his teams at Michigan. He didn't take 20 plus shots a game like he's doing now. And so he's kind of grown into this role. And I think that's been fun to watch.
Jeff, a couple acquisitions this summer that we finally gotten to see here in the first quarter of the season. I want to first start with KCP, Kenny, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. Yep. We all know struggled shooting the basketball up until, several games ago. But at home games at Kia Center, you're right there. You're right next to the bench. You get a pretty close view, pretty good, able to listen as well to some of the things that the team sees. Now, on the road, sometimes you're all the way in another county. But at least at home, least at home, what have you seen from KCP so far? Obviously, not just his play on the court, but how he's interacting with the team, off the court and in huddles and things like that.
Yeah, I think he's been just a really good addition for us. We kind of thought that would be the case. He's fit in really well with the younger guys in the locker room. He loves the energy. You watch him on the court, with the guys. He's really enjoying this. And he even says it's not like any atmosphere he's been a part of. It's and I say this all the time. It's a collegiate type locker room, where everybody's kind of pulling for one another. And he's really enjoying that, I think. His defensive ability has been right on. He and Jalen Suggs cause so much havoc, for opposing backcourts. They just wear people down. So I think that's been fun. What's interesting is he just had early in the season, he just couldn't find the range on his shot and everything. And then, it really kind of talks about the human part of this game is where, he has to fly home for the birth of his child from LA. And then he picks back up with us and he's been on a tear ever since. And, and what he said is basically I had a lot on my mind. There were a lot of distractions at home, a lot of worries, and that's all kind of, healthy baby and, wife's healthy. And it just seems to have just kind of freed him or something because he has just been on a tear since then. So I think we're seeing the KCP that, we imagine, the 3-and-D type of player who, on his career averaged 40% from, 3-point line, why teams were rotating to him so much. And so I think that's been a real positive.
The other acquisition for this team, rookie Tristan da Silva, speaking personally for me, he has really impressed me. He's not making a lot of mistakes, being very smart. What have been your impressions with Tristan da Silva through this first quarter?
Yeah, I think you're right on. I think, the part about not making mistakes, I think that's the hardest thing for a young guy. We joke about it there. I think we've added 6 players younger than him, really on our team. But for a rookie coming in, he's not overwhelmed, physically. He's been pretty good since stepping in for Paolo, and, he's done a nice job, but you're right. He just makes smart basketball plays. He shoots it well. He's good moving without the basketball. Defensively, he's been good. He has his struggles just like every new player, with the speed and the physicality of the game. But there's a maturity about him, I think, that's enabled him to step in and contribute. It's interesting. Nobody anticipated he'd be a starter, but I think it shows that how actually how good he is, or well respected by the coaches, that they would stick him into that spot and trust him with those minutes, because we're a very deep basketball teams with the guys that have experience. And they chose to put him in there, and I think he's done really well. He's flourished.
We talked about the growth of Franz and just sort of like the revelation that he's been this year, Jeff, and really helping keep this team afloat, especially the offense while Paolo's been out. But apart from Franz, what other areas of growth have you seen from other guys that have contributed to the hot start for the Magic?
Well, I think, to a man, I think there's, different guys. I mean, we could go down the list. I mean, obviously, I think when you look at it, I think Anthony Black, he has become a high minute guy. Really his maturity off the bench, I think, running the basketball team, he's done a nice job with that. Defensively, he's been really good. I think having Goga, the luxury of having Goga Batase, when you lose a Wendell Carter, your third string center can step in and be the starter, and just brings a different dynamic, shot blocking, his activity. He stepped up, it's just kind of cliche, I think, that, when you always hear next man up, when somebody goes down. But what's interesting about that is, the next man has to step up, but, he's got to be able to step in and give the team what it needs. And I think that's what's been so fun is a guy like Goga can step in and no, he's not Wendell Carter Jr. in his ability to guard all 5 positions, but he can be a defensive factor with his rim protection and things like that. So I think he's been a big part of this. Mo Wagner has been, so consistent off the bench for us. It's we were laughing the other night. Jamal Mosley said, Mo Wagner wakes up and gives you 10 points, just rolls out of bed. And he's got 10 points on the stat sheet and he does it in short minutes. His minutes have come up a little bit because of the absence of, different players, but he's played well. I mean, I could go on down the list. Jalen Suggs has been, really good for the most part. He's had some tough shooting nights here and there, but defensively, he's always there, I guess. And I think that's what's been great. I've been reading a little bit that maybe the national media that votes on these things and everything's starting to give Jamal Mosley a lot more credit for what's happened with this team. It's not just Franz Wagner, but it's, coaching these guys, helping them believe and, figuring out game plans that work for this group, especially on the offensive end. That's all Jamal Mosley and his staff. So that's been really good.
JT, several games so far this season through the first quarter have been highlights for Magic fans. You think obviously to the season opener in Miami, that second half was a lot of fun. You think to Paolo's 50-point game, that was a lot of fun. But I think so far most Magic fans, their probably favorite game would be the Lakers game, the game in Los Angeles, which first off was a great game to begin with, and then it ends with the Franz game winner. Talk us through that night. What was it like from your seat, and how much fun was it to get to call that with Dante at the end there?
We just we had a really good time. It's when you play in Staples Center and you're playing the Lakers. There's just a buzz. People can talk about how the media always talks about the Lakers and everything. They just they are a buzzworthy team, and they were healthy for the most part. You had great games from LeBron. You had great games from Anthony Davis. Their stars were playing at a high level. But yet this scrappy Magic team just kept, every time they made a run, we answered and everything. So, to have a chance at the end and, anytime you're broadcasting and it starts playing out where, you play the foul game, right? You've got to put them on the line and try to make up. And then you never know what can happen, right? And so the missed free throws, everything has to go right. And the missed free throws that, put the Magic in position where, they're down 2 with off a rebound, no timeouts, you got to go. And, it was so funny in the moment. I'm like, go for the win. You got to go for the win right here. And, because everything was just falling into place. I was just, in my mind, I'm thinking if we go to overtime, they're not going to miss these free throws. This is what it's all about. And to have Franz Wagner go down and hit that shot in that building was just incredible. And again, we talked about Dante is like, is so he's just so excited, and just to have him get the opportunity to make that call in one of the biggest games was just it's just a great ending for everybody involved.
Jeff, we talked last year, like you're really excited for the potential of this like Orlando Miami like rivalry to really fully bloom, but like the team's trajectories have both flipped so quickly. It's like there may not be. How upset are you at that there just might not be room for a rivalry between these two teams?
Oh, I don't know. I have so much respect for Eric Spoelstra and what that Miami team. When it all comes down to it, I don't know. I'm going to wait. We're at the quarter pole. Let's talk about that one a little bit later. I still think, hey, going down and getting that first win there, that was big time, right? I really enjoyed that one. That was a fun broadcast. But let's save that one for down the line when we start really looking at the standings and everything, because I have a feeling that Miami, when it's all said and done, is going to be right in the thick of things. So we'll see how that plays out.
I think it's worth mentioning. It didn't just beat Miami; you beat them real bad. So we'll take that.
That's okay. I'm glad you pointed that out.
I'm never afraid to do that. Wanted to talk to you a little bit about the NBA Cup knockout stages that's starting off, next week in Milwaukee. First off, a little bit of a kind of crazy ending to the Magic's group stage, obviously, but they did all their work in the front end, building up that point differential. But what are you kind of excited about for this, this new experience, the inaugural Magic game in this quarterfinal of the NBA Cup, and then the prospect of maybe going to Vegas for a semifinal, maybe in a final? What do you think about this whole setup?
I think it's fun. I'll be honest with you. You guys know this. I'm a little bit old school, and so I was a little skeptical of the whole thing early. But I'm really, I think it's been good. I think that the fans have enjoyed it. I think the coaches always say it's just another game, but I think there's something to it. I think you're playing for something. I think. Especially for a team like this Magic team, young team, I think this is going to be good. I mean, you're going to get national coverage for this, the knockout game with Milwaukee. We will also be covering that game, so it's not exclusive for TNT, but it's another chance to be on national TV. You're playing a Milwaukee team that's seems to have turned things around a little bit. It's playing a lot better. So I think this is a good. Anything where, you get young players that get a chance to experience playoff type, playoff type atmosphere, playoff type coaching and conditions. I think that's a positive. So I think it's good. I'm looking forward to it. It should be fun.
And just really quick, have they told you if the Magic do go to Vegas, do you guys get to call the games from Vegas, or are those exclusives too? Have you heard anything?
Those are definitely exclusives.
I figured.
Yeah. We were actually surprised at the knockout rounds. The game in Milwaukee. Since we saw that TNT was covering it, all the games, we were surprised. But I guess somehow they have determined that those don't count in the exclusivity. So that's good. So we'll get to work it anyway. But no, we won't be doing the Vegas games.
Well, we're definitely happy that we get to get you guys on the call Tuesday in Milwaukee. Jeff, I wanted to ask you, some Magic fans have started to raise not the alarm, but a slight level of concern at the way that this young Magic team has performed in some of these like bigger stage games, especially on the road. Like you go back to, last year in the Cleveland series, earlier this year in Cleveland, the other night in New York. Do you think it's maybe the case of just like a young team has to learn how to play on that stage, or do you think there are other factors at play with the way the Magic have performed in some of those games?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit probably of both. I mean, I think it's part of, learning to play on a big stage. That's all part of it. I also think that, if you're in a big national TV game and everything, it's usually a compelling game, right? It's because it's, in our case, like we were originally going to be on TNT, and then they took us off after Paolo got hurt. But then they realized these are two of the better teams in the Eastern Conference, right? The number 3 and 4 team in the East, and they put us back on. So I think, that in the New York game, in the case of the New York game, I think looking back on it, you start to break it down and look at the numbers and the things. You see a New York team that is very, very talented, right, and played a terrific basketball game. Magic team. We were able to do some things, but they took advantage of every one of our mistakes. So I think, to answer your question and to be fair, is to say, yeah, I think it is something that this team has to continue to learn how to do better, but I don't think we should take away from how good the Knicks were on that night. You know what I mean? And so sometimes the other team in these situations, you just find, and it's happened to the best of teams, right? Just the other team is just a little bit better on that night, or a lot better on that particular night. Unfortunately for the Magic, it just comes on a night when the national audience, is all tuned in and gets to see them.
You guys have talked on the broadcast, especially lately, about the wackiness of the Magic schedule this year and all the games, the lack of breaks and rest, the road games, all those things, which is a whole conversation. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. This team is finally going to come home eventually. You mentioned it, I think, maybe on the last broadcast. The end of this month, we're spending a lot of games at home. I don't know how much you've gotten to look at that schedule, but after the NBA Cup is done, they're home games, but there's some heavy hitters right there in that home stretch. So what do you think, first off, about how the team has been able to fare with this kind of weird schedule on the road? And what are you kind of looking forward to for the end of 2024 with that home stretch and some of the difficult opponents that the Magic will see?
Yeah, I think it's, the nice thing is, is that we're going to be home, right? It's just, and we're talking, I think we played 15 road games already. We've had 2 really, long extended trips out. And the interesting thing, it's just coming so fast. We played more games than anybody. I think there's a couple of teams that have played 24 games like us, but the interesting things is there's no extended period between games. We've had one couple of games where we had 2 days off. Everything else has either been a back-to-back or one day. So when I look forward to the schedule, yes, it's it's going to be fun. There's some really good games in December, high-level competition, but you're home, right? And there are some days where you've got 2-3 days in between games. I just think it'll be good for the guys to kind of get home, rejuvenate a little bit, and then look, I don't care who comes in right now. The Magic in the Kia Center, pretty darn good basketball team. It's you look at the numbers, and that crowd has an effect on these young guys. They play so much better at home. So I think with a couple of days off and everything like that, who knows? I'd love to see him keep that streak going.
Jeff, we do a segment on our show each week where we it's the week ahead, where we take a look at the games that are coming up in that week, and we try to predict what the Magic's record will be. And Kevin and I have both kind of adopted the philosophy that we're not picking the Magic to lose at home until they lose at home. So if it's a home game, we're automatically just chalking that up as a win right now. But Jeff, something else that we wanted to ask is, there's a lot of talk about Franz and Paolo right now, that Franz has taken this next level, and what that's going to look like when Paolo comes back. I tend to think it's a good thing, right? That Franz has been able to really get to this other level, and Paolo has like a true, running mate. It's not like a Batman and Robin thing. It's like a Batman and Superman kind of thing that you have with these guys. But how do you see that going when Paolo comes back, now that Franz kind of has taken this other level up?
Yeah, I think it'll go. I don't see any problems with it. I think they're both very high IQ players. That's what's interesting is we've seen throughout the NBA, especially recently, that you need 2-3 really good players in order to advance, right? And teams have been successful it's a 48-minute game, and I think the challenge for Coach Mosley will be, how do you can't take them both off the floor, right? You got to leave, with one of them's always on the floor, then you've always got, this all-star caliber player on the floor. I just think they'll work well. To me, the thing you look at is it's not how well they'll do together. It's how will other teams defend now, right? Because, I think last year in the playoffs, we saw, the double teams come to Paolo and everything. Now I think teams are going to have to look at Franz a little bit more different. They're going to have to, think about their defense and how they rotate two defenders to him at times to take it out of his hands. So I think those two, they've got a great relationship, and I think there won't be a problem there at all.
Jeff, we want to kind of change gears here from current Magic season to a little bit of some history stuff, some stuff with you. And so we have what we call Patreon, and these are some people that financially support our show. And we told them ahead of time, hey, we got JT coming on the show. What are some things you want to hear from him? And these are some of the questions they had. And I think there's some pretty good ones. So first one I want to ask you, you've been around this organization pretty much since the beginning. Obviously, you had some on and off time there, but on the whole, been around for a very long time. This was a super interesting question. How would you say the Magic fan base has evolved over these 36 years? And what I mean by that is, since you were there so early, you were there for the early stages of Magic basketball and Central Florida getting a sports team and all of those things. You were there to see those days. You were there for some big successes with obviously some of the best teams in Magic history. And then now it's a totally different era of Magic fandom, essentially. How would you say, like, maybe Central Florida and basketball, how have those things changed over the 36 seasons?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, it's since I go back to the beginning, as a part of that first team in Magic history, the thing at the beginning was it was a novelty, right? It was something, Orlando really didn't have professional sports, Central Florida, not major like the NBA. And so I think in the beginning, it was just so new. You'd come in the arena and there would be the old Amway Arena was, really tight to the court. And so you could see the fans, and it would pretty much be for the first couple of years, it was the same people in their seats and everything like that. Same thing happened though. What was interesting is, because Central Florida and Florida itself, is a lot of people come to Florida from elsewhere. So, there may have been a lot of people that, they were Magic fans until the Knicks came to town or until the Celtics came, so it was always, there were the blue bloods of the NBA, if you will, seemed to draw a lot of interest, and, they still do, I guess. But I think that, that through the years, the crowd has become a lot more sophisticated, really understand the NBA game. And as much as I hate to say it, I think that the people, social media has really, the people know more about the players. They interact with them on social media and everything. So I think that, the fan bases are so different. People will travel from, all over, not just in Orlando, but we'll see fans that, maybe couldn't see us in Orlando, but, from Japan or, South America or something. We've had fans that just, hey, I'm a big Paolo Banchero fan or whatever. This is my only chance to see them. And so, I think that's the biggest thing is that, the NBA has become a lot bigger on the world stage, and even from a media standpoint, fan base, that, you're just seeing so many more fans. And so I think that's been to me, the biggest change. We've gone from, Orlando's got a team, this, nice little community team, to now it's, having been a team that's gone to 2 NBA finals and stuff like that. It's a little bit more known, and it's a bigger deal now, I guess, than it was when we started.
Jeff, our next listener question is: you've obviously called a lot of games with David Steele, and over the past several years, he started the very famous "Is This Anything" segment.
Yep.
Every Magic fans, one of our favorite segments of each broadcast. Do you have a favorite "Is This Anything" with David Steele?
A favorite "Is This Anything"? Yeah. What's so I don't know if David has shared this with you guys when you've had him on, but what's so funny is, there were a lot of years we were broadcasting together that the Magic team, we were going through a transition, and we weren't winning a lot of games. Let's just say we weren't very good, right? And so David felt like, the best thing we can do is we can have fun. We can entertain each other. Right. And so David came up with this "Is This Anything?" Really, it was just kind of like, it's going to be a fun way for you and I he said, I've got all this information. You and I can laugh about it and everything. So that's how it started. Right. So if you guys will probably know, it's like, I don't like, to me, "Is This Anything" is when David comes up with something really off the wall, and it's, you have to think about it a little bit. I don't like it when it's like, Franz Wagner has had, 5 straight, 30-point games, and, it's only happened this many times in history. Well, of course that's anything, right? So that's not even worth asking the question. I like the ones where it's just, kind of off the wall, and, there's a really good chance that the truck is going to give him a buzzer, and, we have to, he'll put in a lot of work, and then I get to give him a hard time about it and tell him it's not. Those are the ones that I enjoy. I know people like for David to get a bell every, all the time, but it's a whole lot more fun when it's something that's really questionable, and, I can give him a hard time, and we can kind of debate it and those things. So those are the ones I like, I think. I know you guys are putting me on the spot. So I can't think of one in particular. Boy, there have been some doozies though, where we've just cackled. We're just laughing because it was so off the wall. But you just we'll get at the halfway point. You guys can ask me again. I'll think about it. Maybe I'll have something for you.
Yeah. I'm with you though. The ones, where it's a little 50-50 that adds some drama and suspense to the broadcast. We're all sitting on the edge of our seat just waiting to find out if it's a bell or a buzzer.
So like at home, do you guys ever like it makes you stop and you think, that's all right. Well, that's interesting, but it's nothing really, right? Do you ever find yourself in that position?
Oh.
Well, that right? Or do you just say, I think a lot of fans just say, "That's a great job, Dave. Give him a bell." Because David Steele.
I definitely put myself in the position of the truck when I'm watching. Would I give that a bell or a buzzer? But that also means sometimes, like I have verbally, like if it gets a buzzer and I thought it was a bell, I was like, oh, come on, like it's a bad call or something, in a game. Right. I've absolutely done that. So it's an engaging segment for sure. We have a really good time with that.
It's pretty unique. So I will say that it's there's been a few teams that have tried to copy it and it didn't go well for them.
Yeah, I'd hate to admit that, because I love David Steele, right? Like very near and dear to all of our hearts. But sometimes you're like, I think I'm right there with Jeff. I don't know. It's definitely something. I don't know if it's anything. But, in this space, like when you're making content and you guys are making content on the fly, pretty much on these broadcasts, I always tell Kevin and the guys when we're working on things, like not everything can be a hit, right? Like you're just throwing as much stuff as you can out there and hoping that some of it is going to stick. Not all of it is going to, unfortunately.
I love the fact that the best part is when I guess, like there'll be one, like somebody, somebody didn't shoot a free throw. And it got me thinking, Jeff, kind of thing. It's like, and so those are good, when it gets to, and I always like him when he, ties into some people from the past and everything. And it's just, we have a lot of fun with it. But what's funny is when we, because, the the truck and, graphics people have to put together all the graphics and everything. So we have to talk about it. We spend more time talking about, is this anything, than we do any other element of our broadcast. So, it's not just something that, David just throws out there. He's given it a little bit of thought.
That's amazing. The last question we have from our patrons here tonight. This is an interesting one. The question is this: do you have a favorite dunk of your career? Not necessarily maybe known as a high flyer, JT. I know.
No,
but,
yeah.
and it doesn't have to be with the Magic. Maybe it was at Vanderbilt or in high school. Or is there one dunk that stands out in your career? And you're like, that was my best dunk or my favorite dunk.
I don't.
The list is just too long to count, isn't it?
It's just too long, right? No, it's not a long list, and it's not something. It's funny is like, so in a game, I don't know that I've probably had a fast break, one-handed dunk somewhere along the way, a two-handed dunk, or I had let's see, man, trying to think. My favorite one of all time was it was actually in a practice. Things got a little testy, and I went flying down the lane and dunked over couple of guys in practice, and that got everybody like, where did that come from? And I said, I don't know, I guess I was just angry. I don't know. That's a good question. One of my favorites was I was playing, this is really obscure, in 1982 I was a member of the United States team that played for the gold medal in Bogota, Colombia, and Doc Rivers was a part of that team, and we were playing in the gold medal game against the Soviet Union, and Doc drove the right wing, and as he was going in to the lane, my guy stepped up and he dumped it down to me in the middle of the lane, and I went, coming right down from the free throw line, two hands, and went up strong over one of their big guys. So if I had, I guess, I don't know. It's not, again, that was not, people are not going to say, Jeff Turner, I remember him for his dunking. It's not going to happen, ever.
We promised you a special Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week, and this is it. It's Jeff Turner in the gold medal game of the 1982 Olympics. It's Doc Rivers recovering the loose ball and sprinting down the court. Notice no three-point line, and then he dishes it off. A nice assist from Doc to JT. Jeff Turner with two hands throws it down. Huge bucket for JT, and arguably his most memorable dunk of his career. And so it has to be this week's Jam Hot Chicken Jam of the Week. Okay, now let's get back to our conversation with Jeff Turner.
Well, what about the flip side? What is the least favorite dunk that you've been on the other end of?
Oh, come on now. Those are too many to count. I can, there is this is crazy, but one of my uncles is for some reason has been doing Googling or something on, and so one of my 70-year-old uncles was Googling, must have Googled Jeff Turner or something, was watching old videos, and somehow he just sent me this video, and I'm with the Nets, actually, I think, with the New Jersey Nets, and I'm guarding somebody else, but Larry Bird is on the weak side, and he gets around his man, and I tried to go meet him at the basket, and Larry Bird dunked on me, which, probably was, that's not a good thing, probably, when Larry Bird dunks on you. I mean, if you could say, like Michael Jordan dunked it, yeah, probably. Charles Barkley, yeah, probably. The list goes on, but it's probably, if you go through the stretch, people say Larry Bird dunked on you. It's probably not a great thing. I don't know. Larry was more athletic than people gave him credit, though.
There are people that would give anything to be able to say that Larry Bird dunked on. So I guess it's all relative, the perspective, Well, Jeff, that's the last of our patron questions and the last of the questions that we have for you here. I guess the last thing is really just like, what do you think is maybe apart from getting Paolo back, like what do you think is the next thing that this Magic team has to figure out here as they head into the next quarter of the season?
I think obviously getting Paolo back would help a lot of things, but I think this is is good. This Magic team, and because of their consistency, probably not consistency, but their the continuity with which this team has been built. These guys have played together and everything. I think that shows up on the defensive end every night. And they are really tight together and hard to play against. So I think probably got to figure out, to be a little more consistent offensively, where those 3-point shots come from, this night in and night out, or, are we going to be a paint, team, high points in the paint team, or, we're going to play with pace. I think that's all still a work in progress. I thought we were pretty consistent in all those areas when Paolo was there. So, having him, Jamal Mosley says this when he's asked about it all the time. And, how do you make up for what Paolo's, his absence leaves you? And there is no making up for what, Paolo brings to the table. You can't replace him and can't make up for his loss. So, I mean, it will change us almost immediately, probably when he comes back. It'll take him some time to get his legs under him, I'm sure, but just his presence on the floor makes everything better.
Well, we look forward to getting Paolo Banchero back, and we look forward to hearing you on the broadcast the rest of the way here. Jeff, we always appreciate you taking the time. There's always a ton of fun getting to check in with you here at the quarter marks here. And yeah, looking forward to do this in another 20 games or so. Sounds
good. All right.
Thank you. Shout out to Jeff Turner, always taking the time. Always so much fun to talk to him. Like you mentioned before the conversation started, we were riding high. There's a lot of positive Franz stuff. Jeff is probably every bit as upset as every Magic fan is, but just appreciate Jeff for taking the time. Always good to chat with him about our Magic.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously he's just so down to earth and so relaxed, and hearing his stories about, David Steele and Is This Anything and all that. And by the way, shout out
JT, baby.
Mentioned the show on the broadcast tonight on that Phoenix game, which was fun. But yeah, always so fun. He's just, him and David and Dante and Kendra and everybody, they're just literally the best. It's so cool to get to watch those people every single night and know they love this team just as much as we do.
It's awesome. All right, this one is running pretty long here, Kev. What do you say we go ahead and wrap this one up?
Let's do it.
Again, thank you to Jeff Turner for joining the show. Thank you for you all for listening. For Kevin Tucker, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You all have been listening to the Sixth Man Show, and we will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and Spotify to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It helps out the show a lot. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Sixth Man Show. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic!